Eleanor, this looks like a group photo here. Do you know what it's a picture of?
It's a picture of my dad, his brothers and sisters, and then some other relatives or friends that must have been gathering at their house.
And was this at your grandparents' home?
Yes.
Do you know how long ago this was taken? If you could guess.
Oh, I would think it's like, I would guess 60 years at least.
And were gatherings like this normal at that time?
Oh, yes. You know, that was more than 60 years ago because that was quite a while before I was married, and now it's already 56.
So were you around? You were around when this?
I don't know. I think it's older than that.
And was this type of clothing the norm? While out?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Were a lot of the clothes handmade?
I think so. Not the men's, but the ladies and the kids' were.
And were clothes passed down?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Were your clothes given to your sisters later?
Well, just the three of us older ones, I think. By the time my younger sister came along, they were pretty well worn out.
And who is this couple?
That's my dad, Frank, and my mom, Veronica Noose Hutmacher.
And what is special about this picture?
Well, it's their wedding. And
when were they married?
November 23rd in 1927.
And has your mom, did she ever talk about the wedding?
No, not really.
And was this a normal dress for a wedding?
Yes, a lot of the older wedding pictures are very much like that.
And do you know if she made her dress?
I do not think so. I don't think she made it.
And is this a typical German-Russian wedding?
I would say so, yes.
And when did your mother immigrate?
She was born here in the United States, in Dickinson, yes.
And your father?
He was born in Germany, I guess, and then they moved to Russia. And then immigrated to the United States.
How old was he then?
I think he was about 11.
Did he ever talk about coming over and what that was like?
Yes, he did some, but not a lot.
Did he ever talk about Russia at all?
The thing that I heard most about was that they were promised land, and they had a real good deal when they first moved to Russia, and then the other people were envious that they were treating better than the locals were. And well, Grandpa's family was growing, and so they had to ask permission to build onto their house, and they wouldn't give them permission. The Tsar said that there's a lot of space in the sky, you can build up there. And the war, I guess, and different things made them decide to immigrate to the United States.
And how many siblings did your father have?
Well, they were 15, he was 16.
Where was he in the lineup?
He was the oldest.
He was the oldest. Did he ever talk about what it was like being the oldest child?
No. No, he never really did talk much about the family. Because, you know, they were there, we knew all of them, that you didn't really need to.
So the family was all pretty close?
Yes, they were, yeah.
As far as your father's relatives.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you remember about your aunts and uncles?
Well, they were grown up, of course, and you looked up to them because, back then we were taught a lot of respect. And we did respect them a lot. And we spent a lot of time at Grandma and Grandpa's because Grandpa never drove a car. And so when they wanted to go someplace, visit friends or neighbors, Dad always had to drive them. So, of course, Mom went too, and then we stayed with the uncles and aunts while they were gone.
What was that like?
Oh, sometimes fun and sometimes boring.
Did your aunts and uncles have a lot of children?
Yeah, some of them did, yeah.
Were those the ones you usually stayed with when your parents were gone?
Well, no, because it was the ones that weren't married yet. And we stayed at Grandpa's house, where the younger ones of Dad's brothers and sisters were living yet at home.
And what did your grandparents' house look like?
It was a long line like ours was, and a entryway on the front, and there was a big living room, and then a kitchen, and then a back room where the girls' beds were and stuff. The boys slept in the kitchen and a bed, and then the entryway was on there. And I always thought their rooms were bigger than ours, and probably were.
Now, were you the same age as your aunts and uncles?
No, they were older than we were.
And who is this couple?
That's my grandparents, Valentine and Francis Hutmacher.
And what was special about your grandparents?
Well, they were grandparents, They always welcomed us into their home and made us feel loved. Maybe Grandpa didn't show it so much, but Grandma did.
And what kind of a woman was your grandmother?
She was very gentle and caring. She was a good cook.
Would you often go over and help her?
No. Dad's sisters were still living at home, and so, they did the helping.
Did you visit her?
Oh, yes. I went usually in the summertime, ask Mom for permission to go and see Grandma. A couple times a week for sure.
What kind of things were you able to catch up on with your grandmother?
Well, not really a lot. Now when I think back, I would just sit there and listen to Grandma and Grandpa talk and stuff, and then I would have a piece of jelly bread or whatever and go back home.
So it wasn't a long visit?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was an hour or maybe that much, because I would get tired of sitting there and then I'd go back home.
And how far was the walk back home?
Oh, not far. It was not a quarter of a mile. It was less than that.
And what about your grandfather? What kind of a man was he?
He was a strong man. He kind of ruled the family pretty much, And he was a good provider.
And your parents' home is across the street from your grandparents'. Is there a reason they lived so close?
Well, they worked together. Dad helped with the farming and things. And that's the way it was back then. The families lived close together. They didn't separate like we do now.
So he stayed close in order to help his father? And
yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, they lived with Grandma and Grandpa in the same house until after my oldest sister was born, and then they built part of the house that's there now.
And this is, of course, a wedding photo. Who is in this picture?
That's my husband John and me.
And when did you get married?
June 9th, 1953.
And can you describe how did you meet John?
Well, he knew me a lot longer than I knew him, and I think he got to know who I was at my sister's wedding.
How so?
Well, they were at the dance and stuff, and we were there, so I think that's where he got to know who I was, and so I didn't know he existed for. And then there were other wedding dances in Dickinson that we went to and met there.
And what was your courtship like?
Long distance.
So how did you manage?
Oh, we wrote letters, and he would come to visit quite often.
What kind of letters would he write? Was he a good letter writer?
Oh, informative, I guess. Caring.
And how long after you started dating did you end up getting married?
About 8 months, I think, something like that.
And what was the wedding like?
Well, it was in June, and it had rained a lot that summer, and so it was kind of muddy, and it was a hot, humid day, and rained during the next night, but it didn't rain during the day.
And was it a long day? Was it?
Oh yes, then mass had to be before noon, so I think we had about 10 o'clock, and then you had dinner and supper.
What did they make anything special?
Well, yes, there was a supper club in Dickinson here called the Palm Beach Club, and our dinner, our noon meal and supper were there.
What did they make?
Well, my mom and John's mom made noodles, of course, so we had chicken noodle soup, and I don't exactly remember what the rest of the meal was, but we did have strawberry shortcake. And well, my mom and John's mom made the cakes, but John's mom had the strawberries. So.
Did you like the strawberries?
Yes, the strawberry shortcake is good. With whipped cream.
Was that whipped cream made from the cream from the farm? The cows that you had? Or is that special?
Maybe they did bring it there for them to whip. I don't know for sure.
And did you have a dance or anything?
Yes, we did have a dance. It was another, well, I suppose you could call it a nightclub. There was a bar and a dance hall, and it was right close to the Palm Beach. So that's where we had the dance.
And what kind of music was playing?
Old time.
And how about the dances themselves? What kind of dances did you have?
Well, it was just the usual, polkas and waltzes and two-steps.
And what about later? How long did the dance last usually?
Oh, back then they played until midnight, and then they had intermission of about a half hour, and they usually played till about 1:30 or so.
And so by then you were pretty tired?
Oh yeah. It was
Did you wear your wedding dress the whole day?
Well, until midnight, then we went and changed. And everybody did that and came back to the dance then with other clothes on. I don't know what the point was when...
So what other clothes did you change into?
Oh, yeah, had a new dress to put on, but I mean, for that hour now, when I think back, it was really not necessary.
And did you and John go on a honeymoon?
No, we didn't.
Did you take one later?
No.
Where did you go after your wedding then?
Home to his parents' house.
And how long did you stay with them?
We lived there 5 years.
How was that?
Well, you made do.
And that was out on the farm?
Yes.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add about your wedding or courtship?
Well, you didn't have a photographer at the wedding, for most of the day like they do now. After the noon meal, we had to go to the studio and did the pictures, and then we went back to the place where the wedding was.
Did that take very long?
Well, I think more than likely we had an appointment, but no, because it was just the pictures of him and I and the pictures of our attendants with us,
Who was your attendant?
John's sister and 2 cousins, and I had 2 cousins and a friend.
And did you throw your bouquet?
No,
Like they do today?
no.
So how do you how are weddings like yours? How do they differ than those today?
Really not a lot. They do have a lot more attendance than we had. And it's all more, the bridesmaids have to buy a new dress for every wedding they're a bridesmaid for. Where if you had a dress that you've worn to be a bridesmaid, you wore it again.
It wasn't a big deal then?
No. Just so they were nice. And
did the brides have to choose wedding colors like they do today?
No. It was a lot simpler.
Now this looks like a family photo. Who was in this photo?
Well, it was my parents' 40th wedding anniversary.
And how did you celebrate it?
Well, my sister and I got things going, and we had a potluck. We brought food and stuff, and went out to surprise them. We had invited several friends and neighbors, and we surprised them.
What did they say?
Oh, they didn't. They were surprised, Anyway, I'm pretty sure we surprised them. I don't think we had told them.
And
And I
was
think
this
we
out
had-
at the farm?
Yes, and I think we had somebody make the cake.
Did they have to make that in Dickinson? They bring it out?
I don't remember who made that cake. I think it was maybe a neighbor out there that made it.
And can you tell me who it is in order from left to right?
First one is me. Then Amelia. Catherine. And Alex.
And Rosemary was not there?
No. No, she was living in a nursing home in Bismarck for quite some time, and then they transferred her back here to Dickinson, and that made it nice. We could visit her more.
All right. And did you usually celebrate anniversaries like this?
Well, we did celebrate their 25th, too, and the 40th.
And on the 40th, besides cake and everybody being at home, what did you do?
Well, some people played cards and visited, and I'm sure we had sandwiches and salads and things, too.
And it looks like you're in the house.
In the living room.
And this is how it used to look when it
Yes,
was still
yes.
being lived in.
Yeah, the ceiling had paper, white paper that brightened it up, and the walls were painted.
And how often did the walls have to be painted?
We usually did it every year, because with the coal stoves in there and stuff, it got kind of discolored.
And it looks like is it a rug on the back wall? What is?
That's a curtain.
That's
They
a
didn't
curtain?
have a door that
Oh.
went into the bedroom there, and there weren't any doors on there. There were curtains.
And this is your brother with your parents?
Yes.
And what were they doing?
Well, I don't know what was going on at the time. It looks like maybe somebody was there visiting. Maybe it was one of the times when we were all out there visiting, and that, they were living there, just the three of them, and so we took a picture of them.
And was this your mother's usual outfit?
Yes, she always wore aprons.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
What would she wear on a Sunday?
Well, she'd wear a good dress with an apron over it.
Was that so she wouldn't get it dirty?
Yeah,
or?
right.
Those ones.
But even during the week, women always wore aprons. And
Why
you
was
read
that?
to keep their clothes clean because they didn't have a lot of clothes. They'd have to wear the dress the whole week, you know. And the apron, I think they had more aprons that they could change. And you read these stories about what all the aprons were used for, wiping tears, gathering eggs, and going to the garden and carrying vegetables back. There's quite some stories out about what the apron used to be used for.
Did your mother ever say anything about it?
No, but I did see her carry a lot of things in it.
So that rhyme is pretty accurate then.
Yeah, there's truth to it, yes.
And how long ago was that rhyme out? Do you remember?
Oh, it's been a long time I've read it.
And is the apron a typical German-Russian thing?
I think about everybody used them.
No, it didn't really depend on ethnicity or
I don't think so.
heritage. It was just what was done.
It was something to protect their clothes. Because I'm sure everybody, it wasn't just us that didn't have a lot of clothes, that you had to take good care of what you had.
And it looks like they're in front of the car, which is in front of the house, maybe?
Yes.
And what was that car? Is that a family car?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's one that we had at one time. I'm just not sure what car it is. Unless it was like my other sister and her husband's car. I'm not sure. I don't think it was Dad's.
Okay, and here we have the same grouping as just before.
Yes,
Where are
just
they
the three
here?
of them. Well, it's close by the house because you can see the garage way back behind my brother there. You can see the garage.
Back here?
I think, yeah. I think that's what it is. Or is it a hill?
So would this be at your grandparents' house, maybe?
No, I think it was at Mom and Dad's.
Did they usually take pictures like that out in the field?
Well, you know, that's facing to the northeast because these trees are the garden, where the garden used to be, where the spring was.
So they were
So
in
that was
front of the
taken,
house.
in front of the house, taken to the east. Well, you know, back then there were no colored film or cameras that you could take indoor pictures with weren't out yet at that time. Yeah, they were too. Because they were fairly new around the time we got married, indoor pictures.
So it wasn't unusual at this point for them to be in pictures.
No.
Did they have their own camera?
Yes, my dad had a camera, and nobody touched it but him.
Do you remember what kind of camera it was?
Yeah, it was a box type thing. It was probably 6x4, maybe 6x5, something like that, and about 3 inches wide. It was a pretty big camera, but it did take nice pictures. And he did take quite a few pictures too.
And so this land across here, that was your grandparents' land?
Yes. And the road was in between here somewhere, you know.
Right
I think so.
there. And this is, of course, your parents.
Yes.
Is that a cake?
Yes, it's a cake. That must have been their 40th anniversary because it looks the same as that one did on the other picture.
And is this at the house?
Yes. The house is right here. And the garage is behind them there.
And they, of course, had electricity by then because we can see
Yes.
the electric poles.
Yes.
But they had not had it for very long. Had they?
No, it wouldn't have been very long. What is that, 1968? Oh, probably 5 or 6 years, something like that.
And did your mother ever say, or did you ever notice what it was like for her to change from no electric to having it?
She was very happy. very happy about it.
Did that really take off a load for her within the house?
Yeah, to some extent, because like in the summertime, you didn't have the coal stove. You know, after the meal was cooked, you let it die out. Then you'd have to start another fire for the next meal. And it's a lot of work. And
Did
then,
it ease up then?
did what?
Did it ease up then?
Yeah, because then they had the electric stove, and she could use that. She didn't have to always fire up the coal stove. Of course, in the wintertime, they did anyway, because they used it for heating the house, too.
So it was a little bit easier in the winter when it came time to cooking, to cook?
Well, in the wintertime, I don't think it made that much difference. It was in the summertime where it was a lot easier. And they had the refrigerator where she could take better care of the food, too.
Is she wearing an apron in this picture? I don't see one.
No, I don't think so, because it looks like... Oops, I should have my fingers on there. It looks like it's her dress. She probably wasn't wearing an apron on that one.
And that was unusual.
Yes.
And what is this picture?
That's a 4-generation.
Can you tell me who we have in here?
From left there, my mother. And that's our daughter, Diane. And my grandma, Catherine Frank.
So that was your mother's mother.
Yes. Her husband had died long before my mom got married. And then after Mom and Dad were married, she married Stephen Frank. That's why her name isn't Noose, it's Frank.
And where is this picture taken?
In Mom and Dad's house.
And there are quite a few things on the walls. Can you kind of tell us what it is?
This was a statue type thing. It was quite large and was in the corner. That was the Blessed Mother holding Jesus. And then there was a little compartment on the bottom that was always quite interesting to me. That was hands off, you know. And I don't know.
Is there a picture behind?
Yeah, there's a picture there. And I don't know what that was. And I don't know what this is either. But there were pictures hanging along that wall.
And what about back here in this corner?
That was a little table in the corner with religious statues on it.
And was this how your mother's house always looked?
Yes. Mm.
And what about the curtain? I see there's a curtain between the...
See, that's the other door where you went from the kitchen into the living room.
So they're in the living room right now then?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it like for you growing up in a sod house?
Well, we didn't know any better, and it was our home. And you know, back then, a lot of people had them. They just didn't live in them as long as we did. And Dad was happy there. He liked the home. I know Mom wasn't always happy. She'd have liked something different, but Dad was satisfied, so.
Dad's happy, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And what is this picture?
Well, that's both my sisters and my kids. We were all together. We were out together a lot. So they were all the grandchildren.
It's quite a crew.
My sister Catherine's kids are with her.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Is it
Catherine, Emma, and me. No, it was a C.
Okay.
And Amelia's and mine.
Oh, all three of you?
Yes, all three of
Okay.
us. I'm quite sure her kids are on there too.
So how many grandkids did your parents have?
1924.
Wow.
We had 10, Amelia had 9, and Catherine has 5.
Okay. Do you see them all frequently or no?
Well, you know, they're all grown up now and gone their separate ways. But yeah, I kind of manage to see most of them probably once a year or something like that.
They all look pretty close in age, too.
Yeah, they are. They are. Amelia has two that are older than mine, and the rest are all kind of mixed in.
So she has two that are older than yours?
Yeah,
Amelia does.
yeah. And then, there are a lot of them that are the same age after that.
Was it easy having your sisters close?
Yeah, it was nice to get together and visit, and the kids were really close to each other, too.
And what were those family gatherings like?
Oh, the kids had a lot of fun playing outside and whatever, and going for walks. When we'd be out at Mom and Dad's, they'd go for walks up in the hills and stuff.
And that was pretty fun for them.
Yeah, it was. And we did too when we were growing up. We would go walk around, go up the hills and see how far you could see.
But that was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was.
Do you miss the landscape out there?
Well, where we lived, there was a hill to the north of the farm too that, just for old time's sake, I'd walk up there once in a while. John didn't understand. Didn't see why I wanted to do that. But there were crocuses up there. So in the spring, I especially had to go and find crocuses.
It was a special outing for you.
Yeah, it didn't take long, but...
And is this you and your siblings here?
Yes.
And do you know what year this was?
What year was it dedicated? That was the day that the farmstead was dedicated to, to the Historical Society.
And was it a big celebration that day, or?
Yes, there's a picture in that with them clippings where there were a lot of people there.
And how did you feel about your house, your former house, being given to the
Oh,
Historical
I thought it was a good way to go, and I had hopes that it was going to be kept up, but they were all older people and weren't able to do it, and it just kept being put off, and finally was in too bad a shape for them to try to fix it.
Do you regret? Well, no, that's not what I say. How did your siblings feel about it?
Oh, I think nobody minded. It was a good way to go.
Anything else about the dedication you'd like to share with us?
Well, it was a very busy day, a nice day to see a lot of neighbors that we didn't see very often and visit with.
So a lot of locals came out.
Oh, yes, yes,
And were there too. Okay.
yes.
Now this is, of course, St. Edward's Church, and it's, of course, no longer there. But what does this picture show us?
It was always a nice gathering every Sunday. Pretty much everybody went there, and after Mass, everybody stood around outside and visited for a while, and it's just a nice place to go to church. It was a very nice church. It had one of those big old altars, marble and gold, trimmed in gold. It was beautiful.
And what happened to the church when they decided to?
When it got closed down, they were tearing it down. Somebody was tearing it down, and then it caught fire, and it really burned. But the altar is in the Dunn Center Museum. Dunn County, I guess, in Dunn Center.
And what about the little building to the right of the church?
That used to be a schoolhouse that they moved there for, they would do card parties, and serve meals for funerals and different things like that.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
That wasn't there when I lived there. That was put there after I was married. It wasn't there anymore.
What about the church? Were you married in this church?
We were married in that church, yes.
So what was it like to see the church you were married in be closed?
I felt very bad about it because it was in very good shape. And the local people wanted to keep it there and take care of it, but the bishop, for liability reasons, said they couldn't keep it.
Did anybody ever regret that?
Oh yes, the people out there all felt real bad about it, but he was the boss, so they had to do what he said.
And what year was it that the church was closed?
Must have been in 1986. So it did keep going quite long. It was kept up very well.
And any other memories about this church or the old schoolhouse that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I made my first communion there, was confirmed there, and
is there a cemetery?
well, that's the one there at the
Connected?
farm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
So they kept the cemetery, they just didn't keep the church.
Right.